Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Dick Conaboy, and I'm an alcoholic and a drug addict. That's the one thing that my resume and the little blurb about me that you've got in your program does not say. But I think it's probably one of the most important things that I can say to you today. I am also a suicide survivor, which I think eminently qualifies me to come down and talk to you about what we can talk about along with the area of hope for suicide survivors and for drug addiction and alcoholism. I will tell you that in 1994, my last, I hope, suicide attempt, I was successful. I went to my garage one morning, hooked up a hose to my brand new Park Avenue Ultra, ran that hose into the car window of my car, and they found me there dead 12 hours later. It brought me back, obviously, and I ended up in a place called the Meadows for a period of time until I got my act together. But I will tell you that since that period, I've not had the desire to kill myself. Now, that sounds strange, but I lived with the desire. I'm a drug addict and an alcoholic. I started using drugs and alcohol at the age of 10. And I started using drugs at the age of 13 or 14. And I have lived with the feeling of wanting to kill myself almost from the very beginning. Is there a connection? I don't know. But I will tell you that we experience it daily. A number of years back, they made me vice president at Clearbrook. I said that's one of those bankers kind of titles where you get a new title and no more money. But I've been at Clearbrook for 15 years now, and I have noticed more and more over the past years people coming in who are suicidal. And we do an assessment on every patient who comes in now. We pay a lot more attention to it. There have been 2 attempts in the 15 years that I've been at Clearbrook. There have been 2 suicide attempts of patients in treatment. Neither of them were successful, I'm very happy to say. But I came to you to talk to you about hope. I had no hope, and I started trying to get sober in 1978. And I have a whole bunch of stuff here, as I told them this morning. I did all of this preparation, and I don't think that's what I should be talking to you about. I think I should be talking to you about what I know best, and that is my own lack of hope and my own gaining of hope and where we're going today in treatment. In 1978, I decided I would try to get sober. My first daughter was due to be born in 1978. And I decided I would try to get sober. I did not get sober until 1985. I came in and out and in and out and in and out of the programs. I met a man named Nick Colangelo. My brother had gone through treatment at Marworth, and Nick Colangelo was running Marworth at the time. Nick happens to be my boss now. Some of us never learned. Coming back to the same things. But Nick has helped me incredibly over the years to gain an understanding of sobriety, serenity, and most importantly, hope. Where does hope come from? 1985, I ended up in Marworth flat on my back. Somebody asked me this morning what it's like when they take away your drugs and alcohol. It is like losing the love of your life. I used for 22 years. I've been sober for 30. about breaking even at this point in my life, I think. But I used for 22 years, and all of a sudden in 1985, they say to me, this is a secret, by the way, about treatment. We tell you it's 1 day at a time, 24 hours at a time. What they leave out is for the rest of your life. They leave that little secret part out of there so that you don't run out the door and leave treatment right off the bat. It is like losing the love of your life. I come from a very large family. I have 11 brothers and sisters. As I told them this morning, my children have 75 first cousins, and now they're having babies. There's a lot of us. I'm one of the very fortunate people in the world who has a family that large, because I've been surrounded by that kind of love ever since I was born. I don't come from a dysfunctional family. I was not abused. I was not abused mentally, physically, sexually. I was loved from the very start. But something is broken in me. I have a gene that is unlike other people's genes, other than the 20 million or so people in recovery today that have the same kind of gene that I have. I don't know what caused me to drink. I don't care to know. It makes no difference to me at this phase of my life. I can do absolutely anything I want except for two things. I can't drug and I can't drink. But something was broken in me. And it took me a long time of trying to self-medicate it away. I went from all of the usual starter drugs, from alcohol to pot, and then to pills, and then hallucinogens, and then finally to 10 years of crystal meth. And after crystal meth, I decided to step down because my body couldn't take it anymore. I stepped down to cocaine and ended up where I always thought I would never go, and that was with heroin. Heroin is an absolute abomination on our society right now. But anyhow, I digress a little bit. My life got worse and worse. I became a professional liar. As I said, my family never abandoned me, I abandoned them. I became isolative. I started not coming home, not doing whatever, hanging out with all the wrong people. I've always had an ability to find people just like me no matter where I go. 1980, I left the prison system. I had been at Rockview State Prison from 1975 till 1980. I was a psychiatric counselor there. I left the prison system in 1980 and decided, allegedly, to go to law school. And I say allegedly because I have been to law school twice and I don't have a law degree. Thank God for the legal system. Or the legal system should thank God that I don't have a degree. I found a number of people just like me and stepped down to cocaine. And as a direct result, I ended up not going to law school, not attending classes, and getting thrown out midway through my second year of law school. But I decided not to tell my family that. So I didn't tell my wife, I didn't tell my father, my mother, my 11 brothers and sisters, my kids. I didn't tell anybody. And for the next year and a half, I pretended to go to law school. Right up to the point where we were at Stone Harbor. My whole family traveled together. We're in Stone Harbor on vacation, and I look and everybody's getting dressed up on a Saturday. And when I asked what the hell was going on, they told me my father had found out that that was Delaware Law School's graduation, and they were all going to my graduation. Little problem in that I had not been there in a year and a half. So I ran away, I came back to Scranton, and that was the first of my real threats of suicide. Broke into my father's house and started drinking at his house because I couldn't go to my own house. I lived above my father-in-law, and he would have been upset if I came home without his daughter and granddaughter. So I broke in and I started drinking and thought that the best thing in the world for me to do is commit suicide. Now, I had been having suicidal thoughts for probably 10 years up to that point, but never decided to act on it. I was talked out of that first suicide attempt. But later on, my life got a little bit unmanageable. I got sober in 1985. White knuckling it for about a year and a half. I got sober in 1985. I went to a place called Alina Lodge, which is a long-term rehab. I came out of Alina Lodge and I white knuckled it for a while, but a year and a half into my sobriety, my oldest daughter died. Very sudden. Megan was 9 years old. She got sick December 23rd. She died January 4th. 5 years after that, my infant daughter, Patricia, was born and diagnosed with the same cancer that took Megan. We kept her alive for another year and a half. She was 2 on September 5th. She died on September 8th, and we buried her on my 40th birthday, September 11th. That same month that Patricia died, my son Richard was born. Susie was 9 months pregnant when Patricia died. Richard was born, and within 2 years he was diagnosed with the same cancer. We were told he wouldn't live till his 4th birthday. Very fortunately, I'm happy to say Richard is 23 today. Richard had a bone marrow transplant. He's my best friend, next to Bobby.
Thanks, Dick.
But Richard had a bone marrow transplant. My oldest daughter at the time, Suzanne, was 12 and became his donor and saved his life. But my life became very, very complicated over those years. And even though I was working the program somewhat, I got away from it. And when I say the program, I'm talking about the program of Alcoholics Anonymous and the 12 Steps, which I consider to be the greatest hope for those suffering from suicidality and addiction. I stopped working the program. Those things happened in my life. I had had a great deal of success up to that point. Those things happened. I stopped working the program. I stopped going to meetings. I hired my sponsor so I didn't have to put up with his crap. He had to put up with me. I stopped talking to other drunks and drug addicts because I became too important in my own mind. And I stopped praying. I stopped working the steps. That was 8.5 years into my sobriety. Just before my 10th anniversary sober is when I talked about before I got up and I committed suicide, and they locked me away at the Meadows. I have a great deal of respect for a psychiatrist, and I can't even remember his name at this point, the psychiatrist at the Meadows at the time who was not in recovery, who the first thing he said to me, "You need an AA meeting." And after all that time, I couldn't believe it that the answer was right in my hand. I needed an AA meeting. I have been going ever since. I'm sober 30 years. I go to about 4 to 5 meetings a week. I work in this every day. I work a couple nights a week in it. We do Families Helping Families. It is exactly what I needed at the time, and it's exactly what the answer to this problem is. I had no gratitude. I was the most ungrateful guy you could meet. I was mad at everybody, mad at God. Took my 2 daughters from me. I was constantly poor me, poor me, poor me. And it was not about poor me. It was about a lack of understanding on my part of how this program actually works and where hope actually comes from. Somebody, a sponsor of mine, got me back into the program and back working. They came in. I was absolutely useless to my family. I couldn't function. Other than, as I said, the money coming in from my business, I was useless to them, and I felt that they would be better off if I was dead. I have my oldest daughter now, who said to me at that time, and she was just a teenager at that time, said to me, "How dare you? How dare you think that we would be better off without you? How dare you think that I'd be better off without my father? I want my father. I want my father to walk me down the aisle in the wedding, which I said this morning I got to do. I want my father to be there when I graduate from college." She graduated from the University of Pennsylvania. I have an Ivy Leaguer in my family. I can't even go to class, and I have an Ivy Leaguer. She worked for 2 years at that Children's Hospital in Philadelphia on the oncology ward, where she was the donor for Richard as a nurse, and then actually went to law school, unlike her father, and did it, and is now practicing. So if you need a good lawyer, she's with Myers, Breyer, and Kelly, or Scranton. I have another daughter who is absolutely the light of my life. She is a songstress. She sings unbelievably. She plays unbelievably. She's a music teacher at North Pocono, and she teaches kids on the side. She plays with Daddy-O and the Sax Maniacs. She is, who have been around forever, and they're still going. And she is the light of my life. And I have my son, who is now 23, and he and I travel together. I'm probably the least athletic person you'll ever meet. As I said, I'm Irish and lazy. Not that the two go hand in hand, but they do with me. Richard is a walking sports almanac, and although he is a little bit diminutive, the total body irradiation and the treatment for the bone marrow stunted his growth. So he's only about this big. He's 23. He loves getting carded so that he can whip out that card. He looks to be about 15 and whips out that card and says the proof is in the pudding all the time. But he has taught me more about sports than I ever cared to know, and he and I travel a lot together. Where is this all going? Hope comes from 2 directions, in my opinion. First of all, the family. And again, I'm one of the luckiest human beings on the face of the earth. Not everybody in treatment has a family, and those of us who lived the way I lived and chose to live oftentimes drive our families away. Somebody asked me this morning about tough love, and I believe in tough love. I believe it works, but I believe it works to a degree where you've got to show that tough love, L-O-V-E, if you're going to get through this. The second part of where I believe hope comes from is in the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. I didn't always live that way. My father has. My father is a federal judge. He's been a judge for more than 50 years and has never had a drinking problem. And yet he lives these 12 steps every day of his life just because it's a very good way to live. Teaches us about hope, teaches us about understanding, teaches us about love, teaches us about self-awareness. It takes us from no gratitude to absolute gratitude. If you are working these steps, you cannot help but be grateful. I take an inventory twice a day now, my own inventory. I used to take everybody's inventory. When I first started going to AA, I walked into a meeting, and I dressed like this, by the way, to go to an AA meeting. I didn't have a job. I'm walking around in a suit, coat, and a tie. And I'd walk into a meeting, and I would take all of your inventory immediately. What a bunch of losers you were. Immediately. This one is crying about this one's crying about that. What does this one know? This one doesn't know real suffering. And I did that for a long time, until I realized that I'm exactly like that person, except for one thing. Those losers were staying sober, and I wasn't. I kept going back out. So maybe I needed to learn from those losers. Those losers saved my life. When my daughter Megan died, the first two people at the hospital next to my wife were my brother Conan, who's sober 2 years longer than I am, and my sponsor, who both said to me, "You can't drink over this." I wanted to shoot them, but they were right. They took me back to Scranton and started me going to meetings again, and people from these rooms came and surrounded me and took me from meeting to meeting, made me talk about what was going on with me, because I don't normally do that. This is very odd for me. I don't speak a lot. I used to, but I don't speak a lot anymore. Speaking to this number of people is very weird for me, by the way. Just thought I'd throw that in there. I started working the program and started getting more hope. Hope that things would be okay again. 11 months after Megan died, my daughter Michelle was born. It got us through the first Christmas. Shortly after that, I got another job, and things got better financially. Things continued to get better in my life again until the deaths of my second child. People from the room surrounded me again, did the same thing again. Took me in and listened to me cry, and listened to me moan, listened to me be angry, and told me not to be angry, and helped me through it, and helped me work the steps of this program. I got better, they got better. Things got better at home. When we went through what we went through with Richard, I started getting depressed again, and again, that's when I stopped doing what I was supposed to do at the meeting. Things got immediately worse. I stopped going to meetings, I stopped doing all the things I'm supposed to do. Things get immediately worse. The only thing I didn't do was pick up again. I lived like a junkie. Somebody asked this morning about substituting one thing for another. I believe that happens. I believe that you start substituting eating, sex, gambling, whatever it is, for what you've given up. And I started living that way and living crazy lives again, until after I got out of the Meadows. And that psychiatrist said to me, "You need an AA meeting." I started going to AA meetings again in the Meadows, and I've never stopped. But I needed that help. I needed that hope. I needed that understanding. I believe that people in this room understand that more than anybody, other than, again, recovering people. And I know a lot of the people in here may or may not be in recovery. Those of you who are in recovery probably understand a little bit more about what I'm saying, but I said to one of the young ladies who was there today, I have 3 counselors at Clearbrook who are not in recovery. They do a magnificent job. It's all in the learning, and it's all in understanding. It's all in the garnishing of hope. You can learn why somebody is suffering. We do the assessments, as I said, now at Clearbrook on every patient who comes in. I would guess to say that 30 of the 68 patients at Clearbrook today have had suicidal ideations or suicide attempts in their past. Now that means 38 of them haven't. So not every alcoholic is going to be suicidal. Not every suicidal person is alcoholic. But when you combine the two, it is deadly. Absolutely deadly. Because we don't care. I did not care. I didn't care about my family. I didn't care about money other than I needed money to get what I needed to get. I didn't care about friends. I didn't care about anybody or anything while I was using. It becomes impossible. I woke up, as I said this morning, with this train running through my head of where am I going to get what I need? When am I going to get what I need? How am I going to get what I need? Where am I going to get the money to get what I need? Every day. Every single day. So I couldn't care about my family. All of a sudden, I start getting better, start working the program, and my family started getting better. Hope. I had no hope in 1978. I had no hope in 1985, my first suicide attempt. I had no hope again in 1994, my second suicide attempt. But I've gotten it back. I use Cymbalta and Abilify. I am not against antidepressants. A lot of people in this business seem to think that, oh, I went to a place called Alina Lodge, as I told you before. Mrs. Delaney told me when I got to Alina Lodge there was no such thing as depression. Depression is just anger turned inwards. As I said, I didn't know I was such an angry guy. I was depressed all the time. I use an antidepressant and I think it works. The reason that I continue to use it is I have not felt like killing myself since 1994. Why would I stop? I have filled my life with hope. I have a job that I love. I get to work with people every day who are hopeless. I get to work with them on a one-to-one basis, as it says in the little blurb in the thing. I meet with just about every patient almost every day, even if it's just, hello, how are you, what's going on? But patients come in my office every day, sit down, we talk about problems, we talk about what's going on. I talk about hope with them. And I talk about getting the hope from the 12 steps of this program. Somebody asked me this morning, is 28 days enough? It is absolutely not enough. It is absolutely not enough. Some of the insurance companies are starting to work with us again on getting more time through outpatient. A lot of new outpatient clinics have opened up. A lot of sober houses, a lot of halfway houses are opening up. That's what's necessary. What's necessary to keep this thing going is everybody understanding that 28 days we can detox you, clean you up, give you the tools that you need to get better, and then send you back out into the world, hopefully, to a place where there is intensive outpatient or outpatient treatment, so that you can continue building up your hope, continue getting better. My life has gone from absolutely bizarre for 22 years. I lived abnormally for 22 years of using. My life has gone from absolutely bizarre to absolutely terrific. I am one of the most grateful human beings you can find. Not every day. Some days are better than others, right, Bob? But most days I am one of the most grateful people you can find. I even love Nick Colangelo. Nick is one of the people that I consider most responsible for saving my life. I had the foresight to recognize that 28 days at Marworth was not enough for me, and that I needed to go away, and that I needed to go away for a long time to figure out what was going on with me, why I have this broken gene. I don't know why I have a broken gene. 10 of my 11 brothers and sisters can and do drink. My wife and my 3 children drink. When I say drink, they have a glass of wine. My son will walk around with a beer all night, 1 beer. And he won't drink in front of me, which is something very strange. But 10 of my 11 brothers and sisters can and do drink. Why were they spared and I wasn't? I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it was because they were supposed to give me hope. Maybe they had more going on in their spirituality than I did. But whatever it was, it's working. And it works for me one day at a time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. I don't forget about where I came from. I work on what I need to work on a daily basis. I take my own inventory every day. Try to figure out who I've hurt. If I've hurt somebody, what do I have to do to make up for that? And as a direct result of working this program and doing what I'm supposed to do, things work out in my life. As a direct result of working this program, I see things get better in society. So this morning I heard on my way down here that Jared, is that his name, the guy from Subway? Yeah. Just got sentenced to 15 years. Part of his defense in his trial for picking up children was that Subway took away he had an eating disorder. Just like my drug and alcohol addiction, and Subway took that away from him, so he had to fill it with something else. There's an awful lot of positive stuff you can fill your life with. An awful lot of positive stuff you can fill your life with, but you've got to have hope. Does anybody have any questions? Yes, sir.
When you say you have a broken gene, are you saying that metaphorically?
No.
Or did someone actually diagnose you?
No, I was never diagnosed. I just believe that there is absolutely some biomedical problem with those of us who have addiction. I only say that because, again, I have 11 brothers and sisters. I don't understand how 10 of them could be fine and 2, myself and my next younger brother, end up with addiction problems. If there's not some genetic form of a problem. No, I've never been diagnosed. I've been diagnosed a lot of stuff, but that wasn't one. Anybody else? Yes.
I don't have a question. I just wanted to say thank you.
Excuse me?
I don't have a question. I just wanted to say thank you.
Oh, thank you. Well, thank you very much. Yes, ma'am.
Now, especially thinking about, like, in some states, marijuana is passed as a legal drug. Is there what is that line between addiction and perhaps someone using functionally, specifically, for example, marijuana? I know
I think the legalization of marijuana is the worst thing that's ever happened to this country. I know there's a lot of people who disagree with that, but I think it's the worst thing that's ever happened to this country. I understand the need for medical marijuana. I've seen cancer patients who couldn't eat, and they take either marijuana or the marijuana pills or whatever, and it helps them to have an appetite. I understand with glaucoma patients that there may be a need for medical marijuana, but there is no need to, it is absolutely, positively a gateway drug. And I guarantee you that if you start smoking marijuana, you're going to use other things somewhere down the line too. And again, I guarantee you that I did it. I did it. I started smoking marijuana. I got burned very badly as a 12-year-old. I was at a Boy Scout camp in a charcoal grill, caught a 10-gallon can of kerosene on fire and it blew up in my face. I got burned very badly, and I inhaled the flames and it damaged my lungs. Do you know I smoked marijuana anyhow? Because I'm an addict. But then marijuana wasn't doing it. I think marijuana is absolutely a gateway drug, and the legalization is going to ruin this country.
Is there a difference between, for example, someone who is using it socially or something like, is there a difference between an addiction and someone who's
Yes.
using it socially? Okay.
Yes, there definitely is, and some people have successfully used marijuana. Some people I have a good friend who owns a furniture store in Scranton. We helped his son get sober, and then he got sober. He smoked marijuana for 36 years, and he ran a very successful business. But he smoked every night, and that was the end of his night. And if you're an addict, you start noticing things becoming uncontrollable in your life. Things get unmanageable. We admit our lives are unmanageable. That's when you become an addict. But I just guarantee you that the more they legalize marijuana, the more problems we're going to have. Because what's next? Speed was legal. Diet drugs. That's how I started using diet drugs, and I was 120 pounds. And then moved on to crystal meth because it was better, more potent. But there's definitely a difference between somebody who uses something occasionally and an addict. And some people can. As I said, an awful lot of people can drink and don't get DUIs and don't get arrested for disturbances in their house and don't end up in handcuffs. But we don't.
That person who, let's say, smokes marijuana every day or drinks every day, but functions, how do you help that person accept that they have an addiction?
I think if you're using every day to begin with, that indicates a major problem. I don't know if you're an addict or you just have a major problem. But if you're using every day, you got a problem. If you have to alter your being every single day, alter your mood on a daily basis, there's something going on with you that you need to be talking to somebody about. And again, are you an addict? I can't say that. I don't know that until I've sat down with you and we've done whatever. But if you're using something every day, you need to really take a look at it. I had a grandfather who I found out later on in my addiction, used to go to Maloney's bar every day. He was an executive with Bell Telephone. And he used to go to Maloney's bar in Southside in Scranton every day after work. And he said he'd come in and take off his white gloves one finger at a time and fold them and put them on the bar. And John Maloney said then he'd have his 2 or 3 drinks and go home. Well, how come you have to have 2 or 3 drinks every day? I don't understand that if you don't have a problem. So it's talking. The answer to all of this is talking. Getting all of the correct information and getting it all down, and then talking some more. And the answer to hope is talking. And again, we're getting more help from the insurance companies, even though they've cut back on days. We're getting more help from a lot of the foundations and the organizations that are here today, getting more help, getting more people into treatment. And that's what it's going to take. Anybody else? Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.